Elliot had always been fascinated by the forbidden and the unknown. A seasoned tech blogger, he prided himself on delving into corners of the internet that the average user wouldn't dare to explore. His latest obsession was the dark web, of a mysterious and hidden part of the internet known for its anonymity and, unfortunately, its association with illicit activities. One evening, while researching for his next blog post, Elliot stumbled upon a forum dedicated to what it called the ultimate truth. The forum claimed to offer truths that were hidden from the public eye, secrets that would alter one's perception of reality itself. Intrigued and somewhat skeptical, Elliot decided to explore further. He equipped his system with robust security measures and dove into the depths of the forum. The forum was a maze of threads discussing various conspiracy theories, paranormal encounters, and cryptic puzzles. As he browsed through the posts, one thread in particular caught his eye. It was titled, "The Door to Nowhere." The original post was by a user named Obscurus, who claimed that there existed a digital door on the dark web that led to real-world consequences. Every user who had reportedly opened this door had either disappeared or gone insane. The thread was filled with debates about whether it was an elaborate hoax or a genuine supernatural phenomenon. Driven by a mix of curiosity and the desire to create compelling content for his blog, Elliot decided to investigate further. He replied to the thread, asking for more details. Almost immediately, he received a private message from Obscurus. The message contained coordinates to a hidden page on the dark web along with a warning: once you open the door, there's no going back. The truth isn't always freeing. Sometimes, it's a prison. Later that night, with a storm brewing outside, Elliot followed the coordinates. They led him to a plain-looking page, with a single link in the center labeled Enter. His hand hesitated over the mouse. The warning echoed in his mind, but his curiosity won. He clicked the link. The screen went black for a moment before text started to appear. It was a riddle that seemed to describe a location in his own city, a derelict building known for urban legends and ghost sightings. The riddle hinted at a physical door within that building which mirrored the digital one he had just opened. The last line of the text was the most chilling: find the door and you find the truth. But be warned, the truth might find you first. Elliot felt a shiver run down his spine. The storm outside intensified, mirroring the turmoil in his thoughts. Despite the ominous nature of the task, the lure of uncovering and documenting this phenomenon for his blog was irresistible. He packed a flashlight, a camera, and his trusty notebook, then set out into the night toward the specified location. The building was on the outskirts of town, an abandoned asylum that had been closed down after allegations of patient mistreatment and unexplained deaths. As Elliot approached, the silhouette of the dilapidated structure loomed through the rain, its broken windows like dark eyes watching his every move. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. Elliot's flashlight pierced the darkness, casting long shadows as he made his way through the crumbling halls. According to the riddle, the door he was looking for was located in the basement, beneath the east wing of the asylum. Navigating the debris and avoiding the spots where the floor seemed ready to give way, Elliot finally reached the basement. The air grew colder as he descended. At the bottom of the stairs, he found a hallway lined with doors, each leading to different abandoned sections of the basement. As he moved down the hallway, his flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows against the walls. His heart pounded in his chest as he counted the doors, looking for the one that matched the riddle's description. Finally, he stood before it, a heavy, metal door with an air of finality that seemed out of place in the decrepit surroundings. Elliot reached out a trembling hand towards the door's cold, iron handle. The sound of his own breathing was loud in the silence of the building. Just as his fingers brushed the handle, a low moan echoed through the basement. Elliot froze, the sound chilling him to the bone. Continuing from where we left off. Elliot's breath caught in his throat as another moan reverberated through the dark, followed by a series of soft thuds, as if something, or someone, was dragging itself along the hallway behind him. He shone his flashlight down the corridor, its beam slicing through the thick darkness. There was nothing visible, yet the sounds grew louder, closer. Elliot's mind raced with the possibilities of what might be lurking in the shadows, each more terrifying than the last. His curiosity now warring with primal fear, he made a decision that would haunt him forever. He turned the handle and pushed the door open. The room beyond was unlike any other part of the asylum. It was perfectly intact, untouched by decay. The walls were lined with old, leather-bound books, and in the center stood a large oak desk with a single, burning candle casting a weak light around it. What struck Elliot the most was the air. It was warm, as if the room were alive. On the desk lay a thick, dust-covered book with an ornate lock. Beside it, a small, antique key glinted in the candlelight. As he stepped into the room, the door slammed shut behind him with a force that shook the walls. Spinning around, Elliot tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Trapped, he turned back to the room, his heart pounding in his chest. The moaning had ceased, replaced by a stifling silence that seemed to press in on him from all sides. Compelled by an unseen force, he approached the desk and picked up the key. It fit perfectly into the lock on the book. As he turned the key, a sense of dread washed over him, a premonition of something terrible hidden within the pages. But it was too late to turn back. He opened the book. The pages were filled with writings in various languages, some of which Elliot recognized as archaic forms of Latin and Greek, others completely alien to him. As he flipped through the pages, the text seemed to shimmer and shift under his gaze, the letters rearranging themselves into words he could understand. They told stories of other visitors to the room, each account ending in madness or disappearance. The last entry was written in a hurried scrawl, the ink blotted with tears or worse. It ended with a warning: do not trust the keeper. Before Elliot could ponder the meaning of these words, a cold laugh echoed through the room, chilling him to the bone. From the shadows behind the desk, a figure emerged, tall and thin, its face obscured by a hood. Its eyes, if it had any, were hidden in the darkness of its cowl. "You are the latest, but not the last," the figure spoke, its voice a whisper of decay. "This book is the ledger of souls, and now you too shall contribute your story." Elliot stepped back, bumping into the desk. He realized with horror that his hands were moving on their own, opening to the last blank page of the book. An old quill pen, its tip stained with dark ink, lifted itself into his hand. "Write," commanded the keeper, its voice compelling his obedience. As he wrote, the words poured out of him as if drawn from the deepest recesses of his mind, his fears, his regrets, his darkest memories. With each word, he felt weaker, as if the book were feeding on his essence. The room grew colder, the candle's flame flickering in the chilling draft that had begun to swirl around him. Outside, the storm raged on, a thunder rumbling as if in response to the dark ritual unfolding within the room. Elliot's vision began to blur, the edges of the room melting into shadows. He tried to resist, but the keeper's presence overwhelmed his senses, drowning him in a sea of despair and darkness. Hours or perhaps moments passed, time seemed meaningless in that place. When Elliot finally stopped writing, he was no longer sure of who or where he was. His story had merged with those of the others, just another entry in the keeper's ledger. The keeper loomed over him, a satisfied sigh escaping its unseen mouth. "Your tale is woven into the fabric of this room, forever a part of its walls, its air, its essence." Elliot's mind reeled as he tried to grasp his fate. He was part of the room now, another soul captured in its endless library of horrors. He could feel the others, their fears and memories intertwining with his, a tapestry of torment and madness. As the keeper faded back into the shadows, Elliot found himself alone, the candle extinguished, leaving him in utter darkness. He stumbled to where the door had been, but his hands met only smooth, cold wall. The room had sealed him within, another prisoner of its timeless horror. In the darkness, Elliot heard the sounds again, the moans, the shuffling footsteps, now accompanied by whispers, soft and incessant. They were the voices of those who had written in the book before him, trapped within these walls, their souls woven into the very fabric of the room. Each voice told fragments of their own stories, their words a chilling chorus of despair and warning. Elliot listened, his own fear merging with theirs, creating a symphony of dread that echoed through the dark. He felt the air thicken as the whispers grew louder, more urgent. They seemed to be coming from the book on the desk, its pages rustling softly as if caught in a non-existent breeze. Drawn back to the desk by a force he couldn't resist, Elliot touched the book once more. The pages flipped open of their own accord, stopping on a new entry, the one he had just written. His story glowed faintly on the page, the ink shimmering with a spectral light. As he read, the words changed, morphing into a prophecy of sorts, foretelling the arrival of another visitor, one who would, perhaps, break the cycle. This revelation was a small light in the oppressive darkness of his new existence. Elliot clung to the hope that someone else could end this nightmare. He tried to call out, to add a warning to his entry, but his voice was lost in the chorus of whispers. His physical form began to fade, his essence becoming part of the room's atmosphere, just another shadow in the darkness. As he resigned himself to his fate, the room began to change around him. The walls seemed to pulse slowly, breathing with the life of every soul trapped within them. The candle on the desk flickered back to life, its flame casting eerie shadows that played across the faces of the books like creeping vines. Each shadow seemed to carry a whisper of its own, tales of lives cut short, of madness and despair. Elliot's perception of time distorted further. It felt as if days, years, maybe even centuries passed in mere moments. The storm outside had calmed, but the tempest within the walls of the room raged fiercer than any weather. The book continued to rustle, its pages turning as if searching for the next soul to add to its collection. Then, a new sound cut through the whispers, a sound that was distinct and unmistakable. It was the sound of footsteps, real and solid, approaching the room. A flicker of hope surged through Elliot's fading consciousness. Could this be the visitor foretold in his own entry? The one who might break the cycle? The door, long since vanished, reappeared as if conjured by the very anticipation of the newcomer. It creaked slowly open, and a silhouette appeared in the doorway, outlined by the dim light of the hallway outside. The figure hesitated, as if sensing the danger that lurked within. Elliot tried to scream a warning, to tell the figure to run, to escape while they still could, but no sound emerged. Instead, his whisper merged with the others, a futile attempt to communicate through the veil of his entrapment. The figure stepped into the room, and the door shut behind them with an ominous thud. The candle flickered violently as if welcoming the new arrival. Elliot watched, helpless, as the figure approached the desk, drawn inexorably to the book just as he had been. As the newcomer reached out to touch the book, the whispers of the room rose to a crescendo, a terrifying symphony of warnings and welcomes. Elliot could only watch as the cycle prepared to begin anew, the room ready to claim another soul. In the darkness, the keeper's laugh echoed once more, a sound of triumphant malice. "Welcome," it whispered, its voice a chilling blend of all the voices that had come before. "Write your story, join the chorus, and let the game continue." And so, the room waited, hungry for the new story, ready to weave it into the tapestry of horror that it held within its walls. The shadows danced, the book opened, and the pen waited, inked with the essence of those who had written before, each one a prisoner of their own tale. The new visitor, a young woman named Clara, hesitantly picked up the pen, her hand trembling as she became aware of the weight of her decision. She was a journalist, driven by a relentless pursuit of hidden truths, much like Elliot had been. As her fingers touched the quill, the whispers around her grew into a chorus, each voice pleading, warning, or beckoning. Clara could feel the energy of the room pulsating, as if the very air was alive with the souls of those who had come before her. She began to write, her story unfolding on the ancient pages. The ink flowed from the pen as if it had a life of its own, each stroke revealing more of her deepest fears and darkest secrets. As she wrote, the room seemed to absorb her words, the walls quivering with a grotesque delight. The candlelight flickered, casting ghostly shadows that moved independently of any light source, enveloping Clara in a dance of darkness. Elliot, now more shadow than substance, watched helplessly. His consciousness was fading, but he clung to the hope that his writing might have altered the course of the game. Perhaps Clara would find a way out that he had not. His story, now a part of the room's fabric, whispered to her from the pages of the book, offering cryptic guidance and dire warnings. Clara paused, her eyes scanning the room, feeling the oppressive gaze of countless unseen watchers. The room seemed to be closing in on her, the walls subtly inching closer as if breathing with a sinister life. She felt the chill of the unseen eyes upon her, each one a silent witness to the macabre ritual she was now part of. Her heart pounded as the realization set in, she was not merely writing her story, but sealing her fate within these haunted confines. As Clara wrote, the words began to affect her physically. Each sentence drained her energy, sapping her will to move or even think clearly. Her vision blurred, and the room's temperature dropped, the cold seeping into her bones. The candle's flame dimmed to a mere flicker, barely holding the shadows at bay. Meanwhile, the whispers grew more urgent, their tone shifting from pleading to demanding. They no longer sounded like disparate voices, but had merged into a single, cacophonous entity that filled the room with a relentless echo. "Finish the story," they hissed, "complete the cycle." Clara's hands moved almost independently as she continued to write, her mind fogged by the oppressive atmosphere. The pen seemed to carve her darkest fears into the very essence of the room, each word embedding itself into the walls, floor, and heavy, airless atmosphere. Suddenly, a profound silence fell over the room. The whispers ceased abruptly, leaving a heavy void in their wake. Clara stopped writing, her breath visible in the icy air. She looked around, her eyes wide with fear, as the shadows began to converge toward the center of the room where she sat. They moved like liquid, smooth and unstoppable, pooling around her feet and rising slowly. Elliot, now nothing more than a wisp of consciousness embedded in the room's fabric, could only watch in despair as Clara became the nexus of a dark transformation. The room was alive, and it was hungry. It fed not just on the stories written within its walls, but on the very essence of its occupants. The shadows reached Clara, enveloping her in their cold embrace. She tried to scream, but the darkness muffled her voice, swallowing her cries as it had swallowed her words. The candle went out, plunging the room into an impenetrable darkness that seemed to pulsate with malevolent intent. In this complete darkness, Clara felt herself dissolving, her physical form fragmenting into the room's voracious shadow. Her last conscious thought was a desperate hope that her story might serve as a warning to others who might follow, to avoid the cursed place and its deadly game. Elliot's essence, mingled with that of Clara and the others before them, felt a surge of sorrow and helplessness. They had all become part of the room's legacy, a tapestry of horror and despair woven from their own fears and nightmares. The room, satisfied with its newest acquisition, settled back into a waiting silence, its appetite temporarily sated. The book lay open on the desk, its pages fluttering slightly as if in anticipation of the next unwary soul to discover it. Outside, the world continued unaware of the horrors contained within the room, the house standing silent and decrepit, hiding its dark heart. The cycle was complete, but the game was far from over. The room would wait, eternal and hungry, for its next player to enter and contribute to the ever-growing story of the darkest, most hidden truths. As the darkness settled like a thick blanket over the room, the whispered chorus began again, faint at first but slowly growing, always ready to welcome the next storyteller into its fold.